Hi, I'm Dr. Catherine Kate Morrison, and this is the story of how my stepbrother's greed taught him an expensive lesson about underestimating a country vet. Sometimes the person in muddy boots knows more than the one in the designer suit. Morrison Farms wasn't just any cattle ranch. It was home to the most prestigious breeding program in Texas, with bloodlines worth millions. My grandfather started it, my father expanded it, and I dedicated my life to it, becoming a veterinarian specifically to care for our award-winning herd. Everything changed when Dad married Sandra Brooks 6 years ago. She came with a son, Travis, who had an MBA from Harvard and big plans to modernize our traditional operation. From day one, he saw our careful breeding program and individualized animal care as outdated and inefficient. "Kate, darling," he'd say, checking stock reports on his phone while I performed ultrasounds on pregnant heifers, "you're thinking too small. We need to scale up, maximize profits. All this personal attention to the animals is cutting into our margins." What Travis failed to understand was that our reputation wasn't built on margins. It was built on producing the finest cattle in the country. Every rancher knew that a Morrison bloodline meant excellence. Our bulls regularly sold for 6 figures at auction, and our breeding contracts had a 3-year waiting list. But Travis only saw numbers on a spreadsheet. He started pushing Dad to embrace factory farming methods, to treat our operation like a commodity producer rather than the boutique breeding program it was. Dad, impressed by Travis's business degree and corporate swagger, began to listen. I tried to explain why mass production would destroy everything we built. Our clients pay premium prices because they know how we care for our animals, I argued. They're not buying bulk cattle. They're buying generations of careful breeding and individual attention. Travis would just roll his eyes. "That's why you're still playing doctor with the cows while I'm handling the actual business decisions." What they didn't know was that 5 years ago, when I finished veterinary school, my grandfather had set up a separate company in my name, Morrison Genetics LLC. Every valuable bloodline, every breeding contract, every prize-winning animal was registered under this entity. The farm only had a license to use and profit from these genetics, as long as they maintained our traditional breeding standards. Grandpa had seen too many family farms destroyed by modernization. "Protect the bloodlines, Katie," he'd said before he passed. "They're your family's real legacy." The situation came to a head at last month's Texas Cattlemen's Association Awards dinner. Our prized bull, Thunder Spirit, had just won Grand Champion, adding another $1 million to his breeding value. Tragus saw dollar signs, but he didn't understand what made Thunder Spirit special. The next morning, he convinced Dad to call a family meeting. "It's time for Morrison Farms to enter the modern era," Travis announced, standing in our family room in his Italian suit, looking out of place among the worn leather furniture. "I've drawn up a modernization plan that will triple our production capacity." He laid out his vision, selling off our overvalued prize bulls, replacing them with quantity over quality, turning our carefully managed pastures into high-density feeding operations. "Dad has agreed to sign over controlling interest to me," Travis continued, smirking in my direction. "We need decisive leadership, not someone who spends all day playing vet with the animals." I watched as Dad signed the papers, Travis's mother Sandra beaming beside him. 20 years of my life's work, being handed over to someone who saw our animals as nothing but numbers on a balance sheet. "Don't worry, Kate," Travis said condescendingly. "We'll still need a vet on staff, as long as you learn to work more efficiently. No more of this individual care nonsense." I stood up quietly. "I'll need to check on Thunder Spirit. He has a breeding collection scheduled for tomorrow." Whatever. Travis waved his hand dismissively. Just make sure all the paperwork is ready for when I take over next week. We've already got buyers lined up for some of these overpriced animals. I drove my truck out to Thunder Spirit's pasture, where he grazed with his carefully selected herd. Pulling out my phone, I made a call I'd hoped I'd never have to make. Dr. Williams, it's Kate Morrison. Remember that contingency plan we discussed? It's time. The next morning dawned bright and clear. Travis arrived early, ready for his first official day as the new head of Morrison Farms. He had buyers coming to look at Thunder Spirit, planning to sell our champion bull for quick cash. His new Range Rover kicked up dust as he drove to the main barn, already talking on his Bluetooth about modernization plans. He was so busy looking at his tablet that he didn't notice something odd. The pastures were empty. I sat in my clinic office, calmly drinking coffee, waiting for the storm to hit. KT. Travis burst through my door, faced red. Where are the cattle? Where's Thunder Spirit? I looked up from my medical records. Oh, they're safe. Morrison Genetics LLC moved them to our new facility last night. Morrison? What? What are you talking about? I pulled out a folder and slid it across my desk. 5 years ago, Grandpa created a separate company to protect our bloodlines. Every valuable animal on this farm, their genetics, offspring rights, breeding contracts, they're all owned by my company. The farm only had a license to use them as long as certain conditions were met. Travis snatched up the papers, his hands shaking. This is impossible. The farm owns the cattle. The farm owns some basic stock, I corrected him. But Thunder Spirit? His entire breeding line? The embryos in our lab? The $1 million breeding contracts? They all belong to Morrison Genetics. Check the registration papers. The color drained from his face as he frantically flipped through documents. Every major asset he planned to sell was legally owned by my company. Dad, he shouted, pulling out his phone. We have a problem. Dad arrived 20 minutes later with Sandra and Tal. I'd already laid out all the documentation. Breeding registries, genetic patents, contract agreements. Everything Grandpa and I had quietly put in place to protect our legacy. The farm only had a licensing agreement, I explained to Dad gently. It expired the moment you signed over control to someone planning to abandon our breeding standards. You underhanded little. Sandra began, but Travis cut her off, his business mind finally grasping the situation. How much? He demanded. How much to buy the genetics company? I smiled. It's not for sale. But I have a counter-offer. I laid out my terms. I would lease the genetics and breeding rights back to the farm, but only under specific conditions. I would have full control over the breeding program. No mass production. No selling off bloodlines. We would maintain the standards that made Morrison cattle the best in the business. And if we refuse, Travis asked through gritted teeth, then I take my company, my cattle, and my contracts elsewhere. The buyers you lined up? They're not paying premium prices for the farm. They're paying for our bloodlines. Without them, Morrison Farms becomes just another commodity ranch. Dad sat heavily in a chair, looking suddenly old. Katie, why didn't you tell me about this? Would you have listened, Dad? You were so impressed by Travis's modern business ideas, you forgot what made our farm special in the first place. The next few weeks were tense. Travis tried to fight it legally, but our documentation was ironclad. In the end, they had no choice but to accept my terms. Thunder Spirit and the rest of our prize herd returned to their pastures. I took over the breeding program completely, while Travis focused on the farm's basic operations, under my supervision. Last month, at the National Cattle Show, we won 5 championships. Travis stood awkwardly at the celebration dinner as buyers praised our commitment to traditional breeding excellence. "You planned this all along, didn't you?" he asked later, watching me tend to a newborn calf. All those years of playing the simple farm vet. "I wasn't playing anything," I replied, checking the calf's vitals. "I was protecting our legacy. These aren't just assets on a spreadsheet, Travis. They're living creatures, and they're our responsibility." Yesterday, Dad came to my clinic, looking at my wall of veterinary degrees and breeding awards with new eyes. "Your grandfather would be proud," he said softly. "He always said you were the one who truly understood what we were building here." The farm continues to thrive, though differently than Travis had planned. He's learning slowly that some things can't be reduced to profit margins. Sometimes he even helps with the cows, though he still refuses to wear boots. Last week, a young farming student asked me why I didn't just take my cattle and start fresh somewhere else. I showed her Thunder Spirit's newest calf, already showing his sire's championship potential. "Because this land isn't just dirt and grass," I told her. "It's generations of dreams, hard work, and dedication." Sometimes protecting a legacy means standing your ground, even if you have to be sneaky about it. Morrison Farms remains a family operation, just with a clearer understanding of who really runs things. And if you look carefully at the new sign by our front gate, you'll notice something interesting. Morrison Farms, in proud partnership with Morrison Genetics LLC. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about winning, it's about preserving what matters, even if you have to outsmart a Harvard MBA to do it.
The Anderson family Christmas gathering was in full swing, crystal glasses tinkling as relatives exchanged knowing looks about my struggling career. Mom sat perched on her favorite armchair, orchestrating the gift exchange with her usual precision. "And this one's for Emma," she announced, passing me a small envelope with a pitying smile. "Something practical this year." I accepted it, already knowing what lay inside. Through the window behind her, I could see the helipad lights blinking on my building across the city skyline. "A bus pass," Aunt Margaret exclaimed as I opened it. "How thoughtful, Helen. Especially after Emma's career changes." The changes they referred to were my decision to leave my corporate job 6 months ago. What they didn't know was why. "The 42 route goes right past that little office of yours," Mom added helpfully. "No more parking worries." My phone buzzed discreetly. Tower clearance confirmed for 7 p.m. departure. Crew standing by. Speaking of the office, my cousin Blake smirked from behind his investment banker business card. "How's the consulting going?" I checked my watch. 6:30 p.m. The helicopter would be ready soon. "It's going well," I replied mildly, watching another corporate skyscraper being added to my portfolio through a series of silent phone notifications. "Well enough to afford a car?" Uncle Robert chuckled. "That bus pass will come in handy." Mom touched my arm sympathetically. "Darling, about that offer to help with a down payment on a sensible Honda." My phone lit up again. "Ms. Anderson, acquisition of Pacific Towers complete. Current portfolio value, $2.8 billion. "I'm managing," I said, just as the distinctive whir of helicopter blades became audible through the penthouse windows. "Is that the hospital helicopter?" Aunt Margaret peered outside at the approaching aircraft. "Oh, those poor emergency patients on Christmas." "Actually," I stood up, gathering my things, "that's my ride." The family fell silent as the sleek black helicopter descended onto the adjacent building's helipad, my company logo clearly visible on its side. But the bus pass," Mom stammered. "Will make an excellent bookmark," I finished, retrieving my coat. "Though I haven't taken public transit since acquiring the Transportation Authority last month." "Acquiring they?" Blake's smug expression faltered. "What exactly do you consult on?" The pilot's voice crackled through my phone. Ms. Anderson, your helicopter is ready. Real estate mainly, I replied, watching their faces as realization dawned. That little office you mentioned? It takes up the top 10 floors of the building your firm just tried to lease, Blake. By the way, about that lease application. Mom's wine glass froze halfway to her lips. Emma, what are you saying? That your practical gift, while touching, might be slightly out of sync with my current transportation needs. But your little consulting business. Aunt Margaret sputtered, watching the helicopter settle onto the helipad. Last Christmas you were just starting. Last Christmas, I corrected. I was finalizing the acquisition of my first office tower. The one Uncle Robert called an ambitious pipe dream for someone so junior. My phone displayed another update. Downtown portfolio value, $3.2 billion after Pacific Tower's integration. Those meetings you said you couldn't afford to drive to, Mom began slowly, were with international investment groups. I finished. Turns out helicopter travel is more efficient than a sensible Honda. Blake was frantically searching on his phone, his face growing paler by the second. Anderson Global Properties. That's you? But they're the biggest real estate investment firm in 3 states? I smiled. Yes. Though after today's acquisition make that 5 states. The pilot's voice crackled again. Ms. Anderson, weather window optimal for next 30 minutes. Uncle Robert, who'd lectured me about fiscal responsibility last Christmas, was staring at his whiskey glass like it had betrayed him. The Mitchell Tower acquisition last month was one of my smaller deals, I nodded. Only $400 million. Though the bus pass would have covered my trip to the closing. Mom stood up, her carefully maintained composure cracking. Darling, if we'd known. Known what? I asked, checking another notification about my latest property closing. That the daughter you were so worried about actually owns this building? And most of the skyline you can see from these windows. The family's eyes collectively turned to the wall of windows, taking in the glittering towers of downtown my towers now. Your office, Blake said weakly. The one I called a modest startup space. Takes up half of Anderson Tower, I confirmed. The building your firm's been trying to get into for months. About that lease application denied, by the way. We have standards. Mom was still clutching the bus pass, her expression lost between pride and embarrassment. The downtown development project in the news is mine, I said, walking to the window. Along with most of the buildings you can see from here. That little consulting business you've been so concerned about? It now controls more real estate than the company Blake works for. My phone lit up with another alert. Year-end portfolio valuation complete. $5.4 billion across 5 states. The helicopter, Aunt Margaret whispered, is one of 12 in my fleet, I replied. For when I need to visit my properties in other cities. Slightly more convenient than the 42 bus route. The pilot's voice came through again. Ms. Anderson, Dubai investors awaiting your video call in 45 minutes. I gathered my coat, watching their faces as the full scope of my success finally registered. The daughter they'd tried to help with bus passes and Honda down payments was now one of the largest property owners on the West Coast. Merry Christmas, I said, heading for the door. Oh, and Mom? About that sensible Honda. She looked up, still dazed. I bought the dealership last week. Along with the rest of the automotive group. But thanks for thinking of my commute. The sound of helicopter blades filled the room as I left them sitting there, surrounded by the evidence of their misplaced concern, in a building I owned. The next morning my executive suite at Anderson Tower was buzzing with activity. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, I could see my helicopter fleet gleaming on the private helipad, a far cry from the bus route Mom had so carefully researched. The family's been quite active on Google this morning, my assistant reported, hiding a smile. Lots of searches for Anderson Global Properties and Emma Anderson net worth. My phone hadn't stopped buzzing since I'd left the Christmas gathering. Texts from relatives who suddenly remembered my incredible potential. Blake, about that lease application. Perhaps we could discuss over lunch? Aunt Margaret, darling, did I mention my son is getting into real estate? Uncle Robert, that whiskey we discussed, I have a rare collection to show you. The Dubai investors were impressed. My CFO announced, entering with more acquisition papers. They're ready to move forward with the $800 million development project. My phone lit up with a news alert. Anderson Global Properties expands again. Emma Anderson's real estate empire continues explosive growth. Ms. Anderson, my assistant interrupted, your mother is in the lobby. She's brought the bus pass. I smiled, remembering her face when the helicopter landed. Send her up. And pull up the downtown property map on the screens. Mom entered my office like she was stepping into another world. Her eyes darted from the sophisticated control center displaying my real estate holdings to the helicopter landing pad where 3 aircraft bore my company logo. Emma, she started, clutching her designer purse. About last night. The bus pass. I asked mildly, signing off on another billion-dollar acquisition. I brought it back. She held out the envelope, hands shaking slightly. Given your transportation situation. The screens behind me lit up with real-time updates. Anderson Global Properties market cap exceeds $10 billion. The Honda dealership called, my assistant announced. They need approval for the new showroom design. Mom's face flushed as she realized I hadn't been joking about owning the automotive group. The thing is, Emma, she continued, sinking into one of my custom leather chairs, we were just worried about you. When you left your corporate job. To start my own company, I finished. The one that now owns most of downtown, including this building and the country club where you held my career intervention last spring. Her eyes widened. The country club was an impulse purchase, I admitted. Though not as impulsive as buying the helicopter fleet that replaced my need for your bus pass. My phone buzzed with another update. Middle East expansion confirmed. Anderson Global Properties enters international market. Your father, Mom ventured, wants to know if you'll still come to Sunday dinners. I might, I replied, checking my pilot's schedule. Though private aviation tends to run on its own timetable. The office screen switched to a live feed of the city's latest development project, my latest development project. Mom watched, transfixed, as billions in real estate holdings scrolled past. The Mitchell Tower, she whispered, recognizing the building where she'd once suggested I apply for an entry-level position. Just closed last week, I confirmed, along with the entire block. We're demolishing it for something more ambitious. My phone lit up with another text from Blake. That lease rejection, surely we can work something out? Family discount. Your cousin seems concerned about his office space, I noted, showing Mom the message. Blake's firm. She began. Is being evicted next month, I finished. That building needs renovating and their lease application didn't meet our standards. Like Blake said last Christmas, business is business. My assistant appeared with more updates. The helicopter fleet expansion is confirmed. 3 more aircraft arriving next week. Mom stared at the existing fleet through the windows. When you said you were busy with meetings. I was flying between properties, I nodded. That sensible Honda wouldn't have quite managed the commute to our Seattle acquisitions. The screens displayed another breaking news alert. Anderson Global Properties announces $5 billion downtown redevelopment project. The family Christmas party next year, Mom said quietly. We usually host it. In my building, I completed her thought. The one you're sitting in now. Interesting how that worked out. My phone buzzed with a message from Uncle Robert. About that whiskey discussion, I have some excellent investment opportunities to share. The family seems suddenly interested in business meetings, I observed, declining his calendar invite. Mom clutched her purse tighter. We didn't understand what you were building. No, I agreed, watching another of my helicopters take off for a property inspection. You were too busy planning my bus route. My assistant entered again. Your 10 a.m. is here. The mayor wants to discuss the downtown regeneration project. Mom stood, finally grasping the scope of her daughter's little consulting business. The bus pass lay forgotten on my desk, a relic of their misplaced concern. One more thing, I added as she turned to leave. About Sunday dinners. She looked back hopefully. The restaurant you host them at? I bought it last week, along with the rest of the restaurant group. Menu changes pending. As the mayor was shown in, Mom exited past the helicopter pad, past the fleet that had replaced her practical gift, past the empire they'd never seen coming. 1 month after the Christmas bus pass incident, I sat in my private boardroom reviewing the latest acquisition reports. The city skyline, increasingly dominated by Anderson Global Properties, glittered through the panoramic windows. "Your family's country club membership renewal is up for review," my assistant mentioned. "Given the recent ownership change." I smiled, remembering Mom's face when she'd learned I'd acquired her social sanctuary. Let them sweat it out for another week. My phone lit up with another desperate text from Blake. "The eviction notice is final next week. Please, we can discuss terms." The screens around me displayed real-time updates of my portfolio. Anderson Global Properties surpasses $15 billion in assets. "The Sunday dinner restaurant called," my assistant continued. "Your mother's trying to maintain her usual permanent reservation. Tell them all reservations are under review," I replied, signing off on another skyscraper acquisition, including the family table she's held for 20 years. My phone buzzed with a news alert. Emma Anderson named Real Estate Developer of the Year. From startup to empire in 18 months. The helicopter pad outside my window was busy today, 3 of my aircraft preparing for property inspections across the coast. A far cry from the bus route Mom had so carefully plotted. "Ms. Anderson," my CFO entered with more papers, "the Dubai development is exceeding projections. They're requesting an additional $2 billion investment." I was reviewing the proposal when Mom appeared at my door, looking less certain than her usual country club confidence. "Emma, darling," she started, "about the club membership. The one you used to lecture me about not being able to afford?" I asked, watching another of my helicopters take off. "And the restaurant," she continued. 20 years we've had that table. Things change," I noted, signing the Dubai expansion papers. "Like transportation preferences." My phone displayed another message, Aunt Margaret this time. "Sweetie, remember when I mentioned my son's real estate interests? He'd love to intern. The family seems to be developing a sudden passion for property development," I observed, declining yet another lunch invitation from Blake. "We just..." Mom sank into a visitor chair, watching the empire she'd never noticed her daughter building. "We wanted to help. With a bus pass," I finished. "While I was buying the buildings you could see from the bus windows." The screens switched to live footage of the Mitchell Tower demolition, the building where they'd once hoped I'd accept a junior position. Now it was making way for my latest development project. "Your father," Mom ventured, "would like to discuss some investment opportunities. Like the ones he dismissed as unrealistic last Christmas?" I checked another helicopter departure time. "I'm afraid my schedule is rather full. Aviation commitments, you understand." My assistant appeared with more updates. "The new Anderson Tower West is ready for tenant applications. Your cousin Blake's firm has submitted another proposal." "Declined," I said firmly. "Though I hear the bus route to their new location is quite efficient." Mom winced at the reference to their well-intentioned gift. Through the windows behind her, crews were removing the old building signage, replacing it with the Anderson Global Properties logo. "The thing is, Emma," she said quietly, "we never saw..." "The helicopters?" I suggested. "The buildings? The empire?" "No, you were too busy planning my commute." My phone lit up with another headline. Anderson Global Properties announces $10 billion international expansion. "About Christmas next year," Mom started. "Will be held in my new downtown development," I confirmed. "The one replacing the building where Blake used to work. Helicopter access only." As if on cue, another of my aircraft lifted off, carrying executives to survey my latest acquisition. Mom watched it go, the bus pass story now a family legend of misjudgment. The crystal chandeliers cast elegant shadows across Dad's extravagant birthday celebration at our family estate. Classical music drifted through the air as waitstaff circulated with champagne and hors d'oeuvres. I adjusted my simple black dress, purposefully chosen to blend in with the catering staff, and watched my sister Amanda showcase her latest designer purchase to our parents. "This Chanel dress was absolutely worth every penny of the $20,000, Amanda twirled, her diamond bracelet catching the light. "Daddy's investment in my fashion consulting firm is really paying off." Mom beamed with pride while Dad raised his crystal glass. To my brilliant daughter, making the family name proud in high society. I moved quietly through the crowd, observing the familiar patterns. Every family gathering followed the same script. Amanda dazzling, Mom coordinating the perfect social display, Dad holding court with his business associates, and me, the disappointment. Emily. Mom's sharp voice cut through my thoughts. Since you're dressed so practically, would you help the staff? The crab cakes need replenishing. Before I could respond, Amanda chimed in. Still cleaning offices, sis? I thought you'd have given up on that little computer hobby by now. I checked my watch, a subtle Patek Philippe worth more than Amanda's entire wardrobe, and glanced at my phone. 3 notifications from my executive team lit up the screen. The acquisition papers were ready. Someone has to do the practical work, I replied calmly, noting how Dad's business partner Mr. Thompson was watching our interaction with interest. He was the only one who knew what was coming. Speaking of practical work, Dad set down his wine glass. Emily, I've been meaning to discuss your future. This fantasy of yours about artificial intelligence and tech startups. It's time to join the real world. Henderson Industries is looking for administrative staff. With your experience, you'd make an excellent cleaning supervisor. The room fell into awkward silence. Even the wait staff paused their circuits. That's thoughtful of you, Dad, I said, sliding my phone back into my pocket. But I'm actually quite busy with my current projects. Amanda laughed, the sound sharp and dismissive. Projects? You mean that little program you're coding in your apartment? The one that's supposed to revolutionize artificial intelligence. She turned to the gathered guests. My sister thinks she's going to compete with the tech giants. She won't even accept Dad's help with a real career. I took a slow sip of water, letting them have their moment. My phone vibrated again. The news would break in exactly 3 minutes. Emily. Mom stepped closer, lowering her voice to avoid embarrassing the family further. We're worried about you. Your sister started her business with your father's investment and now she's thriving. Why won't you accept our help? Your father's offering you a real opportunity at Henderson Industries. That's right, Dad nodded. You could work your way up from the cleaning staff to administration within a few years. It's time to be realistic. The large television screen mounted on the wall suddenly flickered to life. Someone had activated it remotely. The breaking news banner flashed across the screen. My sister wrinkled her nose. Who turned that on? It's ruining the ambience. Breaking news. The announcer's voice cut through the party chatter. Tech's youngest billionaire makes unprecedented move in artificial intelligence sector. Quantum Mind Technologies, the revolutionary AI company that's been dominating headlines, has just acquired Henderson Industries in a stunning $4.2 billion deal. Dad's wine glass slipped from his fingers, shattering on the marble floor. Mr. Thompson stepped forward, a slight smile playing at his lips. I believe congratulations are in order. What do you mean? Mom asked, confusion evident on her face. Robert, what's happening to your company? I checked my watch one final time and pulled out my phone as it lit up with the confirmation message. I believe that's my cue. Your cue. Amanda's voice had lost its sharp edge. Quantum Mind Technologies, I said clearly, watching their faces. Founded 3 years ago in my little apartment. That program I was coding? It's now the most advanced AI system in the world. And yes, I just acquired Henderson Industries. I turned to Dad, whose face had gone pale. I don't think I'll need that cleaning supervisor position after all. The room erupted in chaos. Guests began whispering, phones appeared in hands as people Googled my name, and Mom had to sit down quickly in the nearest chair. This is impossible, Amanda whispered. You're nothing but a... My phone rang, displaying my executive assistant's name. Perfect timing. Excuse me, I said politely. I have a board meeting to attend. Oh, and Dad. I paused at the doorway, enjoying the complete silence that had fallen over his birthday party. Don't worry about cutting the cake. I'm sure the cleaning staff can handle it. As I walked out, my phone buzzed with urgent messages about the acquisition, but they could wait a moment. First, I wanted to savor the sound of my sister's champagne glass joining Dad's on the marble floor. The real show hadn't even started yet. The morning after Dad's party, I sat in my penthouse office, watching multiple screens display the fallout. Henderson Industries stock had surged 40% on news of the acquisition. My father hadn't slept. Security cameras showed him pacing his office all night, making frantic calls to his board members, all of whom now reported to me. Ms. Carter, my assistant Sarah's voice came through the intercom. Your family is in the lobby. They're quite insistent about seeing you. I smiled, adjusting my Armani blazer. Send them to conference room A. And Sarah? Initiate protocol Omega. The elevator doors opened, revealing my family's shocked faces as they took in my private floor. Gone was the simple black dress from last night, replaced by CEO attire that cost more than their monthly expenses. Emily, Dad started, his usual confidence shattered. We need to talk about. One moment. I held up my finger as multiple screens descended from the ceiling. Each lit up with different financial data, company statistics, and live global operations of quantum mind technologies. What is all this? Mom whispered, staring at the displays showing my company's $13.8 billion valuation. This, I gestured to the screens, is my little computer hobby. Amanda stepped forward, her designer heels clicking on the marble floor. This is impossible. You were nothing but a what? I interrupted, pressing a button. The central screen showed security footage from 3 years ago. Dad and Amanda laughing as they threw away my business proposal without reading it. A cleaning lady? Failure. A disappointment. The color drained from their faces. Your artificial intelligence program, Dad said slowly, recognition dawning. The one you wanted me to invest in. Has revolutionized everything from medical research to space exploration, I finished. The same program you said would never compete with real tech companies. The screens shifted to show global news coverage. My face appeared on CNN, Forbes, and Bloomberg simultaneously. Tech visionary Emily Carter acquires Henderson Industries in historic deal. But how? Mom collapsed into a chair. You were working as a programmer, cleaning offices at night. I laughed softly. I own those offices, Mom. Every building. I cleaned them to understand every aspect of my company's operations. While you were buying Amanda designer dresses, I was building an empire. Dad's business instincts finally kicked in. Now listen, Emily, about Henderson Industries. Oh yes, I pressed another button. The screens showed the company's complete organizational chart, with my name at the top. Let's discuss that. Your board voted unanimously for the acquisition. Mr. Thompson was quite persuasive. Thompson knew. Dad's voice cracked. He's been on my board for 2 years, I smiled. Along with half of your former business partners. Amanda, desperate to regain control, tried one last time. But you don't know how to run a. The elevator doors opened again. A line of global business leaders walked in, CEOs of tech giants, venture capitalists, and innovation leaders. Ms. Carter, a distinguished Japanese tech mogul, bowed slightly. The International AI Coalition is ready for your presentation. The UN Security Council needs your approval on the quantum encryption protocols, another executive added. And NASA confirms your AI system will control the Mars mission launches, a third chimed in. I turned back to my family, enjoying their stunned expressions. I believe you were saying something about my qualifications? Mom's hands trembled as she grabbed her phone, frantically Googling my name. Her eyes widened at each headline. Emily Carter, the billionaire nobody knew. Quantum mind technologies revolutionizes global AI. Tech's most brilliant mind was hiding in plain sight. The cleaning lady, I said softly, just acquired a controlling interest in over 40% of global tech operations. Including, of course, Henderson Industries. Dad stepped forward, desperation in his eyes. Emily, we're family. Surely we can. Family. I picked up a folder. Like when you told the country club I was your housekeeper to avoid embarrassment. Or when you funded Amanda's 5th failed business but wouldn't spare 5 minutes to read my proposal. The screens showed their years of dismissive comments, carefully documented and dated. The board meeting starts in 10 minutes. I checked my watch, a subtle reminder of the wealth they'd never noticed. Your new positions will be discussed. New positions? Amanda's voice shook. Oh yes, I smiled. Henderson Industries is being completely restructured. Starting with the executive team. The screens switched to live feeds of their offices being cleaned out. "You can't do this," Dad whispered. "The company, our reputation." Actually, I pressed one final button revealing the ownership documents. "I can do whatever I want. But don't worry, I learned everything I know about business from watching you, Dad, including how to execute a hostile takeover." The international business leaders began taking their seats, completely ignoring my family's presence. "Now," I gestured to the door, "I believe the cleaning staff needs some direction. Given your recommendation for my career path, Dad, perhaps you'd like to show them how it's done." As security prepared to escort them out, I turned back to the gathering of global tech leaders, ready to demonstrate my AI system's latest breakthrough. Behind me, I heard Mom's muffled sob and Amanda's shocked gasp as they finally understood. The cleaning lady had just become their boss. And this was only the beginning. 1 week after the acquisition, I sat in what used to be Dad's office, now completely transformed into a state-of-the-art command center for quantum mind technologies. The view of the city skyline was the same, but everything else had changed, including my family's reality. "Ms. Carter," Sarah appeared at the door. "The new organizational charts are ready for your approval. And your family is here for their reassignments." I nodded, pulling up their files on my holographic display. "Send them in." They entered differently now. No more designer strutting or executive confidence. Amanda's Chanel dress was replaced by business casual. Mom's society jewelry was notably absent, and Dad looked like he'd aged years and days. "Please sit," I gestured to the chairs. "Let's discuss your futures at the company." "Emily," Mom started, her voice small, "we've been thinking about what you said." "Good," I interrupted, pulling up their performance reviews. "As I've been thinking too. About all those family dinners where you discussed business opportunities. About how you always said experience matters more than education." Dad straightened slightly. "We did teach you. You taught me everything," I agreed, surprising them. "Every dismissal, every mockery, every rejection taught me to be completely self-reliant. To build something so powerful that even you couldn't ignore it." The screens around us displayed Quantum Mind's latest achievements. Medical breakthroughs, space exploration advances, revolutionary green energy solutions. "Your AI," Amanda said quietly, "it's really changed everything, hasn't it?" "No," I corrected her. "I changed everything. The AI was just the tool. While you were networking at parties, I was coding until sunrise. While Dad was bragging about Henderson Industries' modest growth, I was revolutionizing entire industries." I stood up, walking to the window. "But you were right about one thing. Experience does matter. So let's talk about your new roles." Their faces showed a mix of fear and hope. "Amanda," I turned to my sister, "you're starting in product testing. Entry level. Your fashion consulting experience means you understand user interface and customer preferences. Prove yourself there and we'll discuss advancement." She nodded quickly, clutching her notebook, a far cry from her usual arrogant demeanor. "Mom," I continued, "your social networking skills will be put to use in community outreach. We're launching global initiatives to teach coding to underprivileged children. You'll start as a program coordinator." Mom's eyes widened at the responsibility and the implicit opportunity for redemption. "And Dad," I saved him for last, enjoying the role reversal, "you have two options." He leaned forward, desperate to maintain any connection to corporate power. "Option 1, retirement. Full benefits, generous package, complete separation from the company. And Option 2, his voice cracked. I smiled, pulling up a final document. "You work under Mr. Thompson in strategic development. Starting at junior level. Every promotion will be based solely on merit." The irony wasn't lost on any of them. The positions were exactly what they'd once suggested for me. "But before you decide," I pressed a button and the screens showed new headlines. "Quantum Mind's clean energy solution saves billions. Carter's AI system cures rare disease. Tech visionary launches global education initiative." "This is what I built while you were laughing at my hobby," I said quietly. "Every night you thought I was cleaning offices, I was changing the world." Amanda spoke up, her voice different now, respectful. "We never saw, never understood." "No, you didn't," I agreed. "But now you have a choice. You can be part of something revolutionary or you can walk away. Either way, the cleaning lady you dismissed now controls your future. I handed them their contracts. You have 24 hours to decide. Oh, and one more thing. They looked up expectantly. The annual family dinner next week? It's being held here. I'm thinking of serving humble pie as the main course. As they stood to leave, Dad paused at the door. Emily, I was wrong. About everything. Yes, you were, I replied simply. Now you get to experience what I did, starting from the bottom, proving your worth, earning every step up. After they left, I turned back to the city view, remembering all the nights I'd watched these same lights while coding my first AI prototype. My phone buzzed with a message from Mr. Thompson. They never saw you coming, did they? I smiled, typing back. They were too busy looking down to see me rise. The screens continued displaying Quantum Mind's global impact. Each achievement a testament to the power of underestimation. I picked up the old cleaning uniform I'd kept as a reminder, now framed in elegant glass on my wall. Sarah, I called through the intercom. Schedule a press conference. It's time to announce our next breakthrough. As night fell over the city, I stood in my office. No longer the cleaning lady, the disappointment, or the family failure. I was Emily Carter, the woman who turned dismissal into dominance, mockery into millions, and rejection into an empire. And I was just getting started. I sat at my parents' antique dining table, enduring another lecture about my frivolous lifestyle while their credit cards lay scattered between us like evidence at a trial. Really, Sarah? Mom sighed, brandishing her platinum card statement. 3 international trips this quarter? What kind of financial advisor are you? If only they knew those frivolous trips were actually global banking acquisitions. And these business expenses, Dad added, adjusting his gold Rolex, the one he'd bought to match his bank president nameplate. Meetings at 5-star hotels? Private jet rentals. We're just concerned, Mom continued, sipping her 3rd glass of expensive wine. Especially after you left that prestigious position at Morgan Stanley. I checked my phone discreetly. Another message from my acquisition team. Final paperwork for First National Bank ready for signing. Current value, $8.2 billion. You could have had your father's position by now, Mom pressed. Vice President of Regional Operations. Instead you're... What exactly are you doing? Financial consulting, I replied mildly, watching another notification pop up about the impending bank merger. Dad scoffed. Consulting? Is that what you call spending beyond your means? Your credit card bills alone are paid in full every month, I finished, just as my phone lit up with the Forbes notification. Mystery buyer set to acquire major regional banking chain. That's not the point, he insisted. As president of First National, I have a reputation to maintain. I can't have my daughter living so recklessly. My phone buzzed again. Ma'am, board meeting in 30 minutes. Final acquisition papers ready. We've decided to freeze your credit cards, Mom announced, pushing their family platinum card toward me. Until you demonstrate more financial responsibility. I had to suppress a laugh. They had no idea that in less than an hour I would technically own those cards, and the entire bank that issued them. And, Dad added with authority, I've spoken to the board about creating a position for you. Entry-level, of course. You need to learn banking from the ground up. Another message flashed. SEC filing complete. Press release scheduled for 6 p.m. Speaking of the board, I said carefully, when was your last meeting? Dad puffed up. Last quarter. We're doing excellently. Profits up 15%. I checked my watch. The Real board meeting, the one that would announce their new owner, would begin in 20 minutes. And the Richardson merger? I asked innocently, naming their biggest competitor. Failed, Dad smiled smugly. They couldn't secure the funding. First National remains independent and strong. My phone lit up again. Richardson merger integration plan approved. All subsidiaries included. About that independence, I started just as Dad's phone rang. His face paled as he listened. Emergency board meeting? Mom asked, reaching for her wine. Apparently, he stammered, there's been a development. My phone dinged with the official notification. Your acquisition of First National Bank Group, including all subsidiaries and holding companies, is now complete. Congratulations, Ms. Watson. Sarah, Dad said slowly, staring at his phone. Why is the board meeting being led by Watson Global Financial? I stood up, gathering my belongings. Because Dad, while you were planning my entry-level position, I was planning something bigger. Watson Global. Mom whispered, the name finally registering. But that's my company, I confirmed, watching their faces as realization dawned. The one you called a consulting hobby last Christmas. Dad's phone was buzzing continuously now as news of the acquisition spread through the banking world. Mom's credit card, the one they'd tried to freeze, lay forgotten on the table. The board meeting starts in 15 minutes, I said, checking my watch. Don't worry about your positions just yet. Though we will need to discuss that 15% profit calculation. The real numbers are quite different. This is impossible, Dad sputtered, frantically scrolling through his messages. Watson Global is a multi-billion-dollar financial group. They've acquired 6 banks this year alone. 7 now, I corrected, watching CNBC break the news on their living room TV. Breaking. Watson Global acquires First National Bank in surprise $8.2 billion deal. Mom's wine glass froze halfway to her lips. Sarah, what have you done? What you never thought I could, I replied as my phone displayed the latest stock surge. Built something bigger than Dad's precious corner office. Dad was now desperately calling board members, but they were all headed to my meeting. His face grew redder with each unanswered call. But the money, Mom stammered. The resources needed for something like this. Those frivolous international trips? I smiled. Banking acquisitions in Europe and Asia. The wasteful hotel meetings. Negotiations with global investors. That consulting hobby now controls 11 banks across 3 continents. Dad's phone rang, the board chairman. He put it on speaker, hands shaking. John, the chairman's voice was grave. Have you seen the news? Watson Global. They've acquired controlling interest. The CEO is on her way to the board meeting now. Actually, I interrupted, she's already here. Silence on the line as recognition set in. Sarah Watson, is your daughter. Surprise, I said dryly, watching Dad's face cycle through shades of purple. Mom reached for the credit cards they'd tried to confiscate. Darling, about freezing your accounts. You mean my bank's accounts? I raised an eyebrow. Don't worry, I'll have risk management review your credit limits. Though your recent spending does raise some red flags. The TV continued. Watson Global CEO Sarah Watson, named Financial Innovator of the Year, adds First National to her rapidly expanding banking empire. Dad slumped in his chair, his precious Rolex suddenly looking less impressive. The Richardson merger. You were behind that too. The funding they couldn't secure? I nodded. Came from my European division. I've been planning this acquisition for months, right under your nose. My phone buzzed again. The board was assembling. Time to make my entrance as their new owner rather than the reckless daughter they thought needed financial supervision. The board meeting starts in 10 minutes, I announced, gathering my coat. We'll need to discuss the creative accounting in the last quarter's reports. Dad, that golden parachute you added to your contract last month? Consider it grounded. You can't. He began. Actually, I can. And I will. I checked another message. When Mom? The country club membership you charged to the corporate account? That's being audited too. The TV switched to a file photo of me at last month's World Economic Forum. Under Sarah Watson's leadership, Watson Global has revolutionized modern banking. The lectures about financial responsibility, I continued, heading for the door. The condescending advice, the attempts to control my spending. Did you never wonder where my money actually came from? Mom called after me, her voice shaking. Sarah, please. We were just trying to help. No, I turned back one last time. You were trying to control. Now you can explain to the board how you missed your daughter building a banking empire while you were busy criticizing her lunch expenses. My car was waiting outside. Not the modest sedan they thought I drove, but a Rolls-Royce with Watson Global's logo. Time to show them what real financial success looks like. The First National Bank boardroom fell silent as I entered. 20 board members, including my father, sat frozen as their new reality sank in. The wall screens displayed Watson Global's portfolio. 11 banks, 3 continents, $50 billion in assets. Good evening, I began, taking my seat at the head of the table, Dad's former chair. Let's discuss those quarterly reports. My CFO distributed folders containing the real numbers. Not the polished versions Dad had presented, but the stark truth about First National's performance. As you can see, I continued, the 15% profit increase was optimistic. The actual figures show a 7% decline in core banking operations. Dad shifted uncomfortably, his carefully crafted narrative crumbling. The same narrative he'd used to lecture me about financial responsibility. Ms. Watson, the board chairman started, about the Richardson merger. Is proceeding as planned, I finished. Under Watson Global's umbrella, not First National's leadership. My phone lit up with breaking news. Watson Global announces immediate restructuring of First National Bank. Stock surges 40%. The executive compensation packages, I continued, pulling up more documents. Particularly interesting reading. Dad, care to explain the 3 undisclosed bonuses? His face went pale. The same face that had smirked when denying my request for startup funding 5 years ago. Sarah, he attempted, those were standard industry practices. I emphasized. Watson Global operates differently. More transparently. More ethically. My assistant entered with more reports. The SEC filing is complete. And Mrs. Watson's country club audit results are in. Mom's creative expense reports filled the screens. Designer shopping sprees categorized as client relations. Spa weekends listed as professional development. Speaking of audits, I continued, all executive privileges are suspended pending review. That includes credit cards, club memberships, and... I glanced at Dad's parking space placard, premium parking spots. The board members squirmed, no doubt wondering about their own expense reports. Effective immediately, I announced, First National will implement Watson Global's compliance protocols. The same protocols Dad called unnecessarily strict last year. My phone buzzed with another update. Watson Global CEO Sarah Watson named Banker of the Year. Revolutionary compliance system sets new industry standard. The Christmas bonus discussion, one board member ventured. Should we postpone? No need, I smiled. Those funds will be redirected to employee profit sharing. A concept this board has consistently rejected. Dad's hands clenched around his Mont Blanc pen, the one he'd bought with his last unauthorized bonus. Your positions, I continued, watching their faces, will be evaluated based on merit, not tenure or family connections. The screen switched to Watson Global's organizational chart. Several familiar names were conspicuously absent. But I'm bank president, Dad protested weakly. I corrected. Watson Global's president for this region will be announced tomorrow. Spoiler alert, it's not you. My phone displayed another headline. First National Bank transformation begins. Watson Global's ethical banking model draws praise. The merger paperwork is ready, my assistant announced, including the executive transition agreements. I slid the documents across the table. You have 2 options. Adapt to Watson Global's standards or explore opportunities elsewhere. Though given our market share, elsewhere options are limited. Dad stared at the papers, his banking empire slipping away. The empire he'd used to belittle my ambitions. One last thing, I added, standing. Those financial responsibility lectures? Consider them relocated. From your mouth to my boardroom. 3 months later, I stood in my penthouse office overlooking the city skyline. First National's iconic building, once Dad's pride and joy, now bore the Watson Global logo. Below, workers were installing new signage on what used to be his reserved parking space. The transition reports are in, my CFO announced. First National's efficiency up 45% under new management. Employee satisfaction increased by 60%. My phone buzzed with a text from Mom. Darling, about my credit limit reduction. I smiled, remembering her words at that last family dinner. We're just trying to teach you financial responsibility. Ms. Watson, my assistant entered. Your father is here for his quarterly performance review. Dad walked in, no longer in his custom suits but in standard business attire. The gold Rolex was gone, replaced by a modest timepiece that matched his new middle management position. The Richardson merger integration is proceeding well, he reported stiffly. Though I still think my original approach would have cost us $40 million in unnecessary overhead, I finished, reviewing his department's numbers. Your new role suits you, Dad. Actually working with numbers instead of just bragging about them. The TV on my office wall flashed another headline. Watson Global revolutionizes banking. Sarah Watson's ethical finance model becomes industry standard. Your mother called about the country club membership, he ventured. The one she charged to corporate expenses for 10 years? I raised an eyebrow. Risk management is still reviewing that. My phone lit up with breaking news. Watson Global expands to Pacific Rim. Largest banking acquisition of the decade. The board meeting this afternoon, Dad continued hesitantly. About my department's budget. Will be decided based on performance metrics, I replied. Not family connections. Novel concept, isn't it? My assistant appeared with more reports. The Wall Street Journal interview is confirmed. They're calling you the future of banking. Dad shifted uncomfortably, no doubt remembering his words when I left Morgan Stanley. You're throwing away a real banking career for some startup fantasy. Oh, and Dad, I added, checking another notification. The executive dining room is being converted to employee workspace. You'll need to use the regular cafeteria from now on. His face flushed. The same face that had dismissed my business plan as naive 5 years ago. The annual banking conference, he started, will be hosted by Watson Global this year, I confirmed. You'll receive the standard employee invitation. Though the VIP section you used to frequent is no longer available to your pay grade. My phone displayed another headline. Sarah Watson's rise to banking prominence. From rejected startup to global financial powerhouse. Your sister called, he mentioned. About her loan application. Already denied, I said. Our algorithms found her creditworthiness lacking. Just like you found my business pitch lacking when I asked for startup capital. The screens in my office showed Watson Global's latest acquisition targets. Banks that used to dismiss me as John Watson's reckless daughter were now desperately seeking merger talks. The family dinner this Sunday, Dad ventured. Your mother was hoping. I'll be in Dubai, I cut him off. Finalizing our Middle East expansion. Though I'm sure you can expense a modest family meal at the regular corporate rate. Subject to standard approval processes, of course. He nodded, deflated. The banking titan who once lectured me about fiscal responsibility now needed approval for lunch expenses. One more thing, I added as he turned to leave. Those financial advice sessions you used to give me? Consider them permanently discontinued. As he left, my phone buzzed with another update. Watson Global CEO Sarah Watson named Financial Times Person of the Year, youngest recipient in history. Sometimes success isn't just about proving them wrong. It's about watching them adapt to a new reality where their financial lectures become performance reviews, their executive privileges become standard protocols, and their banking empire becomes just another acquisition in their daughter's global portfolio. Ms. Watson, my assistant called. The Harvard Business School case study about Watson Global's rise is ready for your review. I smiled, thinking of all the future bankers who would study how a reckless daughter transformed the industry that once dismissed her. Some lessons about financial responsibility work both ways.